Listen to the statement recorded in Psalm 83 and verse 4. "Come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be remembered no more." While we've heard this sentiment from several nations in the Middle East, Psalm 83 is proclaiming a statement that will be made by a future coalition made up of the enemies of Israel and is part of a prophecy that was made about 3,000 years ago. In this video, you'll learn 3 key biblical ancestors of the peoples who make up the nations of the Middle East. You'll see why there's so much animosity against Israel, and you'll learn from the Bible how and when these ancient hatreds began. Key number 1. Ishmael is the father of the Arabs. It has been widely acknowledged for millennia, and still is, that the Arab people are the descendants of Ishmael, the son of Abraham. This is actually one point that Jews, Christians, and Muslims largely agree on. God had promised a son to Abraham and Sarah in their old age, though their original names were Abram and Sarai. But after some time had passed and Sarah had not yet conceived, and they were only getting older, Sarah had Abraham have a child with her Egyptian servant Hagar so he could have a son through her. This is not what God intended. This relationship caused a great deal of conflict between Sarah and Hagar, and eventually Hagar fled from Sarah. But God told her to return and submit herself under Sarah, and he told Hagar, "I will multiply your descendants exceedingly, and you shall bear a son. You shall call his name Ishmael. He shall be a wild man, his hand shall be against every man, and every man's hand against him, and he shall dwell in the presence of all his brethren." Later, God told Abraham, "I have blessed him and will make him fruitful, and will multiply him exceedingly. I will make him a great nation, but my covenant I will establish with Isaac." We should note here before we continue, Isaac was the son that came through Sarah, and the covenant promised to him and eventually Jacob and the 12 tribes of Israel also included being multiplied exceedingly, in addition to far more, including ownership of the promised land, as well as blessings of the fruit of the land, minerals, wealth, and becoming powerful, world-influencing nations at the end of the age. Now after Isaac had been weaned, Sarah saw Ishmael scoffing or making fun of him. So Sarah and Abraham sent Hagar and Ishmael away. So God was with the lad, and he grew and dwelt in the wilderness and became an archer, and his mother took a wife for him from the land of Egypt. So we see from the biblical record that there was tension and resentment between Ishmael and Isaac, and between Hagar and Sarah. We also see that the descendants of Ishmael would multiply exceedingly, become a great nation, dwell in the presence of his brethren, be a wild man who is against every man, and every man against him. The general animosity we see in our world today from the Arab peoples of the Middle East and North Africa toward the Jews and other Israelite nations is rooted in the dynamics between Ishmael and Isaac. And it was prophesied that it would be so, which has proven true on a constant basis with what we see in our daily news regarding the Middle East. Now key number 2, the added influence of Esau against Jacob. When Isaac's wife Rebekah was pregnant, it says the children struggled within her, and she asked God, "Why am I like this?" And the Lord said to her, "2 nations are in your womb. 2 peoples shall be separated from your body. 1 people shall be stronger than the other, and the older shall serve the younger." This was another prophecy that has held true. The firstborn was Esau, and the second was Jacob, who later became Israel. As they grew, it says Esau became a skillful hunter, a man of the field, but Jacob was a mild man, dwelling in tents. Genesis 25 shows Esau gave up his birthright blessing for a bowl of soup, having been deceived by his brother Jacob. Because he traded these blessings to be satisfied in the moment with a bowl of soup, Esau did not receive the primary blessing passed down from Abraham and Isaac. Rather, Jacob received the primary blessing and birthright, and Esau received a lesser blessing. Isaac told him he would receive blessings of the goodness of the earth and rain, but also, "By your sword you shall live, and you shall serve, or be lesser than, your brother." This situation led to bitterness and resentment and is highlighted in Hebrews 12:15-17, where Paul warns us to be careful, lest any root of bitterness springing up cause trouble, lest there be any profane person like Esau, who for 1 morsel of food sold his birthright. For afterward, when he wanted to inherit the blessing, he was rejected, though he sought it diligently with tears. This bitterness led to what we read in Genesis 27. So Esau hated Jacob and said in his heart, I will kill my brother Jacob. This same hatred was passed down to Esau's descendants. His descendants are known as Edom and also referred to in the Bible as Mount Seir. Genesis 36 lists the genealogy of Esau and says, So Esau dwelt in Mount Seir. Esau is Edom. This is the genealogy of Esau, the father of the Edomites, in Mount Seir. This is important to know in order to understand the prophecies made about Esau throughout the Bible. We see the Edomites were continually at war with Israel throughout the biblical record. Amos 1 verse 11 says Edom pursued his brother with the sword and cast off all pity. His anger tore perpetually, and he kept his wrath. We see in Ezekiel that God will hold Edom accountable for his continual murderous spirit against Israel. Ezekiel 35 verses 5 through 6 says, Because you have had an ancient hatred and have shed the blood of the children of Israel by the power of the sword, blood shall pursue you. Since you have not hated blood, therefore blood shall pursue you. In verses 10 through 11, God says, Because you have said these two nations and these two countries shall be mine, and we will possess them, that is, Israel and Judah, God continues, I will do according to your anger and according to the envy which you showed in your hatred against them. Obadiah 1 verse 10 says, For violence against your brother Jacob, shame shall cover you, and you shall be cut off forever. Another very important point to be made here is that Esau went to Ishmael and took Mahalath, the daughter of Ishmael, to be his wife in addition to the wives he had. In other words, these two peoples joined together and continued in their resentment and animosity toward Israel and the Jews. So we see Esau and his descendants would be a violent people, would not know peace, they would not prevail against Jacob, though they would want to, and they have been in a constant struggle to take the inheritance they feel belongs to them. Yet God had previously and solemnly declared it to Israel as an everlasting covenant, saying, To you I will give the land of Canaan as the allotment of your inheritance. Esau and subsequently his descendants would be filled with bitterness, hate, and murder towards the people of Israel. It should be noted here that the purpose of this video is to highlight from the Bible why we see the sentiments we see against Israel, and not to nail down specific modern nations that have descended from these peoples. This would require a future video. Now let's examine another, even greater ancient force recorded in the Bible of the animosity we see today against the Jews. Number 3 is the hostility and malice of the Amalekites. In Genesis 36, we learn in addition to marrying the daughter of Ishmael, Esau also took wives from the daughters of Canaan, including Adah, the daughter of Elon the Hittite. Now Adah bore Eliphaz to Esau. Then we're told Timnah was the concubine of Eliphaz, and she bore Amalek to Eliphaz. So Amalek was the grandson of Esau. His grandmother, the wife of Esau, was a Hittite, an idolatrous Canaanite people and enemy of Israel, of whom God did not want the sons of Isaac to marry. Amalek is the father of the Amalekites, who we read about many times throughout Scripture. One major instance is in Exodus 17, where we read about the Amalekites fighting Israel during their wanderings in the wilderness. But they don't just go to war against them like other nations. 1 Samuel 15 verse 2 says they ambushed them, and Deuteronomy 25 verse 17 recounts additional details of how they did it. It says, Remember how he met you on the way and attacked your rear ranks, all the stragglers at your rear. When you were tired and weary, they attacked the weakest civilians, the ones at the rear of the mass of Israelites who were having trouble keeping up with the crowd. The ones who were especially tired and weary. At minimum, this would have included the elderly, parents with small children, and the children themselves. They did not face Israel's military. This is a key character trait of the Amalekites. This is the reason God said, The Lord has sworn, the Lord will have war with Amalek from generation to generation. The International Standard Version puts it this way, Because a fist has been raised in defiance against the throne of the Lord, that is, Amalek's fist, the Lord will wage war against Amalek from generation to generation. In spite of God's instructions, when King Saul went to war against the Amalekites, he spared King Agag. And while Samuel killed him and took care of the job God gave to Saul, apparently there were others who escaped or were allowed to live and continued with the same hatred toward Israel they had always shown. How do we know? Because of the account in the book of Esther. Haman, even though he was part of the Persian Empire, was an Amalekite. The book of Esther refers to him as Haman, the son of Hammedatha the Agagite, the enemy of the Jews. This is referencing King Agag, mentioned in 1 Samuel. This is not only mentioned in Esther, but also in Josephus' writings. He states, "Now there was one Haman, the son of Hammedatha, by birth an Amalekite." In Haman, we see the same spirit of evil malice that had been passed down from generation to generation through the lineage of Esau and then his grandson Amalek. In Esther chapter 3, we see when Haman saw that Mordecai did not bow or pay him homage, Haman was filled with wrath. But he disdained to lay hands on Mordecai alone, for they had told him of the people of Mordecai. Mordecai was Jewish, and instead Haman sought to destroy all the Jews who were throughout the whole kingdom. Then Haman said to the king, "There is a certain people scattered and dispersed among the people in all the provinces of your kingdom. Their laws are different from all other peoples. Therefore it is not fitting for the king to let them remain. If it pleases the king, let a decree be written that they be destroyed." Again, we see this expressed desire to wipe out the Jewish people. So we see the Amalekites, who came from the grandson of Esau, have had a long history of violence and hate against Israel and the Jewish people. The biblical record shows them attacking the weakest civilians of Israel, something we define today as acts of terrorism, and has been a primary tactic used by several militant Islamic groups in the Middle East, including Hamas and Hezbollah. The biblical record also shows their influence in the Persian Empire, almost bringing about the extinction of the Jewish people. Now let's bring it all together. Let's note a prophecy that is yet to occur, stated in Psalm 83 verses 5 through 8. "For they have consulted together with one consent. They form a confederacy or an alliance against you," listing several peoples by name, including Edom, the Ishmaelites, and Amalek. Now let's notice what these groups say against the people of Israel. It's recorded in verse 4. "Come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be remembered no more." This same ancient spirit of hate and murder has carried down to our day and permeates the people of the region surrounding the tiny nation of Israel. It also played a role in the tenets of Islam, which was begun by a self-proclaimed descendant of Ishmael. Here are just a few statements made in modern times that carry the same sentiment we've read in Scripture. In July 1968, the Palestinian leaders signed the Palestinian National Charter. Article 4 states, "The Palestinian personality is a permanent and genuine characteristic that does not disappear. It is transferred from fathers to sons." The original Hamas covenant states in the preamble, "Israel will exist and will continue to exist until Islam will obliterate it, just as it obliterated others before it." Article 8 states, "Jihad is its path, and death for the sake of Allah is the loftiest of its wishes." Article 28 states, "Arab countries surrounding Israel are asked to open their borders before the fighters from among the Arab and Islamic nations so they could consolidate their efforts with those of their Muslim brethren in Palestine. As for the other Arab and Islamic countries, they are asked to facilitate the movement of the fighters from and to it, and this is the least thing they could do." These statements and countless more ring true of what we see throughout Scripture. There is much this video does not cover about the people who make up the Middle East, as it is made up of different peoples with varying histories that we might cover in a future video. This topic can certainly be very sensitive, and it would be inaccurate to say that all the people in the region are against Israel in the same way. The purpose of this video, however, is simply to bring to light some of the ancient drivers that influence the sentiment we see in the Middle East, and to highlight that it is just one more feather in the cap that what we see recorded in the Bible thousands of years ago still stands true today. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and leave a comment below. And subscribe to our channel so you can watch more videos that will help you understand your world through the pages of the Bible. Thanks for watching.